They say Darth Vader was the perfect Sith apprentice, the ultimate enforcer, the guy who made Jedi pee themselves just by showing up. But the more you actually look at his record, the more you start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, Vader was kind of bad at his job. Like, yeah, sure, 10 out of 10 for dramatic entrances, but 0 out of 10 for following basic orders without throwing a tantrum in a cape. I mean, come on. The dude lost more limbs than a malfunctioning battle droid. Couldn't kill Obi-Wan even after trying multiple times. And half the time he just wandered off mid-mission because he had feelings to process. That's not loyalty. That's an HR nightmare in black armor. If Palpatine had a feedback form, Vader would have been flagged for excessive force choking and emotional instability every single quarter. And don't even get me started on how often he let key targets escape. Luke, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka. I swear at some point Sidious must have been like, should I have kept Dooku around? At least Dooku didn't sob in lava while screaming about betrayal. Vader made everything personal, which might be great for drama, but it's terrible for empire building. What's wild is that we still treat him like the gold standard for Sith apprentices. But let's be real. He was more like the cautionary tale. The galaxy's strongest space wizard turned into a glorified henchman who spent more time brooding than actually winning. He wasn't a success story. He was a walking failure in a cool helmet. And that's where things get interesting. Because buried under all the rage and power and shiny life support gear was a man who never really stopped being Anakin. And that changes everything. Vader wasn't the perfect villain. He was the perfect tragedy. A man caught between what he lost and what he was forced to become. In this video, we're diving into why Darth Vader was actually a terrible apprentice. Why Sidious totally regretted betting the dark side on a guy with the emotional range of a Shakespearean ghost. And how all that failure might have actually saved the galaxy in the end. It's kind of weird when you think about it. Out of all the options Palpatine had across the galaxy, he went with the emotionally unstable 19-year-old who just got done crying about sand and killing children. Not exactly what you'd call a high-return investment. But Palpatine wasn't looking for stability. He wanted raw power. And Anakin had that in spades, even if it came with enough baggage to fill a Star Destroyer. Sidious didn't just want a strong enforcer. He wanted someone he could break down and reshape into the perfect Sith machine. Cold, obedient, relentless. But what he got was a drama-filled wreck with mummy issues and abandonment trauma so deep it practically echoed through the Force. The guy wasn't loyal, he was just lost and desperate. Which is probably why Palpatine swooped in at the perfect time. You'd think a galaxy-conquering mastermind like Sidious would want someone with a little more self-control. But no, instead of going with someone like Thrawn Maul, or even keeping Dooku on a tighter leash, he picked the one guy who'd proven over and over again that his emotions controlled him, not the other way around. That's like hiring a firefighter who's terrified of fire but looks really cool holding the hose. And okay, Anakin was powerful. He was the chosen one, after all. But power without focus is just chaos in a cape. Sidious banked everything on the idea that he could tame the storm inside Vader. Spoiler alert, he couldn't. So here's the question. Was Sidious a genius manipulator who saw something nobody else did? Or was he just a guy who bet the entire Sith legacy on a broken teenager with a lightsaber addiction? Because from here on out, things don't exactly go according to plan, let's be real. If Palpatine had a Sith Employee of the Month wall, Vader wouldn't have even made honorable mention. The man had won Jobin, forced the Emperor's will, crushed the rebellion, hunt down Jedi. And somehow, every time he stepped off a shuttle, something slipped through his fingers. First of all, Obi-Wan. The one guy Palpatine wanted dead more than anyone, and Vader couldn't finish the job. Not on Mustafar, not on Mapuzo, not even when Obi-Wan was wheezing and limping like he just came off a P90X burnout. He let him go. Again and again, that's not a power move. That's a walking HR complaint. But here's the truth that cuts deeper than any lightsaber. Vader wasn't just a bad apprentice, he was a broken man in a suit of armor, limping through a galaxy he barely recognized. Palpatine didn't mold Anakin into something greater. He shattered him and stitched the pieces into something he could control. Anakin Skywalker was supposed to bring balance. Instead, he lost everything. His wife, his children, his friends, even his body. And what did he get in return? A life spent breathing through a machine while serving the man who caused it all. That's not power, that's punishment disguised as purpose. Every mission he took, every Jedi he hunted, every order he followed. Deep down, he knew this wasn't who he was supposed to be. He was built for hope and light and justice, not fear and death. And Sidious knew that. That's what made it all work. Vader wasn't loyal because he believed in the cause. He stayed because he thought he had nowhere else to go. The saddest part is, Vader could have been more. If someone had reached him sooner, if the Council hadn't failed him, if Obi-Wan had just said the right words on Mustafar, maybe this whole nightmare wouldn't have happened. But instead, he was trapped in a prison of metal and regret, haunted by memories of who he used to be. And maybe that's why Sidious never really trusted him. Because somewhere inside that black suit, Anakin Skywalker never fully died. And Palpatine knew it. Despite all the emotional wreckage, Vader was terrifying. There's a reason everyone on the Death Star flinched when they heard the hiss of that breathing. The man could choke you from across the room, crush ships with the Force, and carve through battalions like they were warm butter. When Vader showed up, the tone of the room changed. Immediately, his duel against Ahsoka in Rebels was pure nightmare fuel. That helmet cracked open just enough to show the rage in his eye, and the pain underneath. Then there's that hallway massacre in Rogue One. A masterclass in fear. One man, one lightsaber. An entire squad of desperate rebels trying not to die in the dark. But that's just it. His power wasn't the issue. It was the fact that all that potential was chained to a man whose heart had been carved out and replaced with bitterness. The galaxy didn't fear Darth Vader because he was focused. They feared him because he was a storm without a center. Unpredictable, volatile. Even Sidious had to keep one eye open around him. Not because he doubted Vader's strength, but because strength without stability is always a risk. Sidious had created the ultimate weapon, but it came with a self-destruct button called emotion, and it was constantly flickering between loyalty and rebellion. And maybe, just maybe, that's what made Vader the most terrifying figure in Star Wars. Not because he was pure evil, but because he was a walking reminder that even the strongest among us can be completely, utterly lost. Even with all the chaos, all the death, all the pain Vader caused, there was still a flicker of something else inside him. Something human. Luke saw it. Podden believed in it. And maybe, deep down, even Vader felt it too. A tiny ember under all the ash. He hesitated. He questioned. He defied Sidious, not once, but repeatedly. Not just for Luke, but in quiet moments no one saw. Sparing Ahsoka, faltering in missions. Letting his mask slip just enough to reveal the ghost of Anakin underneath. He was never as far gone as Palpatine wanted him to be. The Emperor needed a tool, not a man. But Vader couldn't completely stop being Anakin. And for all his failures as an apprentice, that failure to fully fall might be the only reason the galaxy had a chance, because it meant he could still turn back. He wasn't just a machine of death, he was a man clinging to scraps of who he used to be. Luke didn't beat Vader with strength, he beat him with compassion. That was the final twist. The thing Palpatine never saw coming. The ultimate betrayal wasn't Vader overthrowing Sidious. It was Vader remembering love. Remembering who he was. And in that moment, when Vader picked up the Emperor and hurled him to his doom, he wasn't a Sith apprentice anymore. He was Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one. Finally fulfilling the prophecy in the one way no Sith could understand. In the end, Darth Vader was never really the apprentice Palpatine wanted. He was too volatile, too emotional, too haunted by what he lost. And for all the terror he unleashed, he never truly gave himself over to the dark side, the way Sidious had hoped. Palpatine didn't get a disciple, he got a prisoner. And that's the tragedy of it all. The greatest Sith Lord of all time was shackled to a man who never stopped being broken, never stopped reaching, never stopped hurting. That pain made him powerful, but it also made him unpredictable, and ultimately, unusable. Vader didn't fail because he wasn't strong enough. He failed because he couldn't let go of his past. His very soul fought against the role he'd been forced into, and while that made him unreliable to Sidious, it made him relatable to us, a man who fell, and kept falling, until someone gave him a reason to stand again. So yeah, Darth Vader was a terrible apprentice. He disobeyed. Disappointed. Destroyed more allies than enemies some days. But he was never supposed to be perfect. He was supposed to be human. And in the end, that humanity is what saved the galaxy. Not his Sith training. Maybe that's the cruel joke of the dark side. It promises power, but demands the death of the self. And Vader, for all his rage and ruin, never fully gave it up. Which means the Empire never had him. Not really. Not all the way. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider looking at my pinned comment and checking out the links for my Amazon storefront. It contains my favorite Legos, my gear in which I make videos, and comics that I read on a daily basis. I update it constantly, so please, take a moment and click on the link. On top of that, check out my second channel, Critical Analysis Hub Plus, and my third channel, Critical Analysis Hub XP. Just one click would go on a long way in supporting my channels and future in YouTube.